morning, everybody. My name is Barry Schwartz, and this is the Search Buzz Video Recap. Today is Friday, June 18th, and this is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at seroundtable.com. Lots to discuss. Google confirmed the June 2021 core update stopped rolling out as of this past Sunday, I believe, June 12th. Then on June 15th, well, Google confirmed that on June 15th. Then on June 15th, Google said the page experience update is starting to roll out very, very slowly, and I'll get you a little bit more detail about that. Google released Search Console Insights for everybody and a ton of other SEO nuggets, so stay tuned. And of course, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Loud Interactive. Usually I do like the image behind me, but I figured I'll make a makeshift shirt for myself. YouTube style, right? Any event, thank you so much for sponsoring Loud. They're a Chicago-based SEO firm led by Brett T. Payne. You may have heard of him numerous times. Check them out, and thank you for sponsoring. Okay, so first up, we had the June 2021 core update rollout. It started to roll out on June 2nd. Again, we didn't really see a significant rollout until maybe June 5th or 6th or 7th or so. And then on June 11th and 12th, we saw some shufflings. We weren't sure what that was. Get back to that a little later, but it seems like it may have been the tail end of this June core update. Google on June 15th, I asked Danny Sullivan on June 15th, it's 2 weeks, is it done? And Danny said, yeah, it actually finished a couple days ago. He said it finished on June 12th. So we have all that. It did seem like on June, I think it was like 6th or 7th, there were significant fluctuations in the Google search results. It took a while because usually Google announced it on June 2nd. I think June 5th, 6th, and 7th, we saw changes. Pretty calm then. And then on June 11th and 12th, we saw another batch of changes or so forth. It may have been related to the June core update, it may not. But again, your time frame for this June 2021 core update would be June 2nd through June 12th. Keep that in mind because July one is coming out, I guess, in about a month or so from now. So keep that in mind. Like I said, we had this June 11th and June 12th unconfirmed update. It probably was related to the tail end of the June 2021 core update. A lot of chatter in the forums about it. Keep that in mind. There was definitely a significant amount of chatter around the June 11th and 12th. I believe it probably was at this point the tail end of that update. Again, Google finished rolling it out on June 12th, so it probably was the tail end of that update. Now, I didn't write about this yet, but there is some little shufflings and chatter around June 16th and 17th about an update as well. Some think it might be related to the page experience update. I don't think so. Most of the tools show nothing. Moz does show significant traffic changes yesterday on June 17th, and also SEMrush shows a little bit of fluctuations the past couple days, but everything else is pretty calm. And the chatter, it's not really crazy, to be honest, so we'll see. And like I said, the page experience started rolling out on June 15th. It was a very, very slow rollout. It's going to happen through June 15th all the way to the end of August. Now, just to give you a timeline, on April 20th, Google released a new page experience report in Search Console. Also, signed exchanges started working for all web pages. So you can use signed exchanges pretty much for prefetching and instant loading of your web pages. On June 15th through 17th, so June 15th started to roll out the page experience update very, very gradually. It won't finish until the end. AMP logos will start to go away. I see some people actually reporting it going away yesterday on June 17th, which is what they said. June 17th, top stories will no longer be a requirement. AMP will no longer be a requirement for top stories on June 17th, which is yesterday, Thursday. Although, and I did see some people actually mention they don't see the AMP logos anymore in the top stories. I still see them. I tried numerous mobile browsers, still see them, but I assume it's going to go away any minute now. It's probably a slow rollout. And the AMP icons, which I said are going away, I said people are already noticing that as of yesterday, June 17th. We haven't seen Google make a final decision about showing a page experience badge, but that may be continued to test. And then by the end of August, Google will finish rolling out this page experience update by the end of August. Now, again, Google's going to constantly update these scores. It's going to be from the Core Web Vitals and some other metrics like the mobile interstitials and mobile friendliness and HTTPS. And that's going to constantly update. So as you improve your website, it should improve your rankings. Of course, Google said this is a lightweight tiebreaker signal, so you probably won't see significant changes there. I did a poll the other day, like right after it launched, the day after it launched, saying, do you notice any changes based on the page experience update? Most of you said no. Over 50% pretty much said no. So again, it's hard. Google's always making changes, so it's hard to know what changes made a difference. With that, Google released a video the day before Google announced that it went live, basically saying what is changing with top stories carousel. And like I said, what's changing significantly is that it no longer require AMP. Signed exchanges currently work. And any site that has some of the core web vitals and page experience doing well there, you are eligible to show up in the top stories. You want to watch that video. It's laid out very, very well. I posted about it on June 16th at seroundtable.com. Again, John Mueller said before this update rolled out that do not expect any sudden ranking changes with this update. So again, if you saw significant changes, it probably was not related to the page experience update. Keep that in mind. And also last week, Google released an update to the PageSpeed Insights report where it actually shows partial field data for sites that have not the full field data. So again, it's going to show you a little bit more data, which is the partial field data if they have zero. It used to show you nothing if you had partial, which is pretty cool. Another announcement this week is that Google released or is beta testing a new feature for the author or journalistic knowledge panels. So if you get in, like you search for Barry Schwartz, technologist, or you search for any of your favorite authors, hopefully I'm one of your favorite authors. If not, it's okay. I won't take it personal. But if you search for some of your favorite authors, there's a limited beta test right now for some of those authors in the US English mobile results. For some authors that that would basically show an article carousel under the knowledge panel for the author, which you can then scroll through the most recent articles from that author. It seems like it's all from the same news site, but it's not necessarily that case. It would be interesting to see this roll out even more and see like if somebody like myself writes at both Search Engine Roundtable and Search Engine Land, will it show articles that are most recent from both those sites in that carousel? Will be interesting to see. Some people think this is another sign that Google understands authors well, and that's part of EAT. I'm not really sure. I think it's just one of these features that you see in the knowledge panels. Also, like I said this week, Google has launched something they've been beta testing for almost a year now, I think a little bit over a year now, called Google Search Console Insights. The Google Search Console Insights is basically a special Search Console report which migrates and bridges Google Analytics data with Google Search Console data, and it's really designed specifically for content publishers, so content producers and publishers. It really gives you a unique view about how your content's performing. The questions it answers is what are the best performing pieces of content? How are your new pieces of content performing? How do people discover your content? How do people search for your content before they visit it? And what articles are they referring, I guess it's social media type of stuff, to your website. So definitely take a look at that report. It's available to everybody. If you integrate and you link up or associate, as Google call it, your analytics to your Search Console, you will get a lot more data from that. Google's John Mueller said that that quality, like a quality signal, is one of the, I guess, number of site level signals that Google uses. Now, super controversial topic in the SEO field for some reason, but let me quote John Mueller. He said, there are some signals that we can't reliably collect on a per page basis, where we do need to have a bit of a better understanding of the overall site. And quality kind of falls into this category. Again, if you're looking to figure out the quality of a website, you have to use the website itself as a whole to figure out the quality. How does Google figure out the quality of a website? It bases it off of all the URLs on the website. Now, sometimes some URLs could hurt you. We've heard John Mueller say this over and over again. Some URLs on your website could hurt you, could hurt the overall quality of the website. So if you have a section of your website that's really low quality, maybe filled with bad user-generated content, that can impact, and John Mueller has said this over time, many, many times, that can impact the rest of your website. So Google says you should really segment off certain areas of your website that you do not want to be associated with the website. And you might do that with a subfolder and so forth, but generally, it could have impacted your whole website. Now, of course, Google ranks specific web pages, but the score of the overall website is probably plugged in when it's ranking a specific web page. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, read this article. I think I did a pretty good job trying to explain it. John Mueller also said that it takes Google longer to remove people also ask results from the search results than it would take them to remove a normal result. So if you use a URL removal tool or you 404 a page, Google's pretty quick at removing the snippets, the normal snippets from the search results pretty quickly. But when it comes to removing the people also ask result, John Mueller said it takes them a little bit longer. he said it takes them a little longer because it takes them more time to figure out the people also ask results. And because of that, if you want to remove a people also ask result, expect it to take longer than removing an actual snippet. Gary from Google spoke a lot in his latest Search Off the Record podcast with the John Mueller and Martin Splitt crew around information retrieval. It's a very informative discussion around that, so definitely take a look at that. He basically talks a lot about information retrieval and how Google uses it. He also references the Paul Haar talk that was given a couple years ago at the Googleplex. I was there. But if you want to understand how information retrieval works, definitely take a look at that. He also said that there isn't much trick to how search works, meaning he's been at Google for 11 years or so. John Mueller was there for 13 plus years or so. And he said, being there and understanding how search works, there isn't much you could do to trick Google. And this came up basically when you said that people learning information retrieval, he's nervous about people learn. John Mueller said, I'm always nervous when people learn about information retrieval because maybe they'll figure out something that tricks Google. But then he's like, then they come back and say, well, it's really about building great content. So it's kind of for a full circle. And Gary chimed in. He's like, exactly. Basically saying that there isn't much trick, meaning there aren't no tricks to actually try to rank well in Google search. So it's very interesting to hear him say that. And also in this podcast, John Mueller was like, kind of feel like Google search is kind of like not represented as much as it should be at Google I/O. Google I/O is a developer conference, so Martin Splitt's thing was like, hey, it's a developer conference. Google search is a consumer product. Obviously, there are some developer-oriented stuff like rich results, structured data, a lot of developer-related stuff, which they do talk about at Google I/O, but the conference is focused around developer stuff like TensorFlow and Google Cloud and all that type of stuff. Makes sense. But in general, I do think Google underrepresents Google search in a lot of their announcements. It's their biggest product, their biggest money-making product, and I feel like it's underrepresented not just by Google themselves, but also by big media. If you think about it, a Google search update impacts, obviously, all the consumer searches. They don't really realize it, of course, because they just get results. But it also impacts tons of businesses, online businesses, offline businesses, with ranking changes. And it could actually impact businesses significantly. Now, when Google does an update, big New York Times, Wall Street Journal rarely ever writes about it. If they do write about it, they might just complain about how horrible Google is in general. But they don't write about the updates. I think they should, because these updates are significant. They actually impact businesses significantly. They impact searchers as well. And it's much more important than Google releasing a new small little Google Assistant update where, I don't know, they launched dark mode or something. I mean, of course it's flashy and Google talks about this type of stuff. I just find it interesting that Google's main product, search, which drives almost all of their revenue, which people use constantly all the time, and it's baked into all their other products, the main media and Google themselves don't talk about it as much as they should. I also wrote a blog post where somebody asked me, how do Google search algorithm updates slow rollouts work? What do you mean by slow? What does that mean? When they push out an update, shouldn't it be like there right away? And the answer is no, it doesn't happen right away because Google has, one, multiple data centers that have to get the new data, the new scores, the new content, the fresh data. But also than that, the way Google pushes these updates out, I believe, is that they gather the scores and they update those scores as they crawl the web. So I think they push out updates as you would see with the crawl cycle of the web. And Google doesn't crawl the web all at once. It's like snap, the whole web's crawled. They don't reprocess every single URL on the web, snap, it's all done. It takes time. There's a spider that crawls the web, reprocesses things, and so forth. And I think that is what you see with these slow rollouts. I wrote this in more detail on June 17th. So if you want to dig into what I wrote, Google did not confirm this, but based on me covering Google search for almost 20 years and listening to every single word Google has said, I believe that is how it works. Of course, I also ask Google about site commands. What I've noticed is that I do tons of site commands, meaning site, domain, query, meaning I want to know when, I remember in New York Times doing an article about XYZ, I want to find it on the New York Times. I don't go to the New York Times and use their search box. I had to go to Google and I type in site command, www.nytimes.com/the query. So I'll write in, try to find a specific article about Google. I write Google, I don't know, buttons, whatever it might be. I noticed that after core updates, for some sites that seem to have got hit negatively by these core updates, the site command returns less relevant results sometimes. And so I asked Google about this, and Gary said, yeah, he said site plus query is affected. It is using the normal ranking path. If you just do a site command just to get the number of raw counts of pages and so forth and the rankings, that's unrelated. A site command without any query is unrelated to any ranking update, he said. But he said when you add a query to that site command, yeah, it could actually be impacted by that, which I thought for a while, and honestly, I thought about this for numerous years, never wrote about it. And I'm like, you know what? Let me see if there's any truth to this. And he said, yes, there is truth to that. Google's testing a feature in Google search called Browse More Ideas. Pretty cute. You can take a screen. Here's a screenshot of it. You can take a look at that. Google's testing showing refinement bubbles in the people also ask. Here's a video or GIF of it in action. Google seems to be reducing the number of FAQ-rich results that they're showing in the search results. So a lot of people are starting to notice only 2 FAQ expansion tools in the snippets. And here's a screenshot of what people are seeing. In addition, if you go outside the US, I think it's like a slow rollout, I'm not sure, but John Mueller basically said, yeah, it's a normal evolution of how Google handles rich results. They pull back, they scale back on how many they show, how many sites are able to see it, what they show, because they don't want to pollute the search results. And they did this numerous times with not just rich results for FAQs, but also rich results for other rich results. I think Google's kind of testing this now. We'll see if it fully rolls out. So just keep in mind that FAQ results seem to be limited in the number that they're showing, as well as how often they're showing in general. Google My Business has launched new performance report information. We knew this was coming, so they added directional results as well as website visits to the performance report. It's already in the Insights report, but the performance report in Google My Business. Google announced yesterday afternoon that you can now, in Google search, update your Google My Business profile or Google Business profile for post, services, and delivery and takeout. Previously, you could just update your basic information, like your hours, description, maybe upload photos from Google search. Now you could actually do that in Google search for posts, services, and also takeout and delivery information. So they're making search more into updating your Google My Business profile. I wonder if Google My Business might be going away soon. Hope not. Probably not. Google's testing a new delivery icon for Google Maps and local. Instead of it being like a fork and knife, it's actually showing some type of delivery courier, which is pretty cool. Here's a screenshot. Google Maps is also showing in the map results for searches for restaurants, not the information about the restaurant name, but more about the average ratings for those restaurants. And finally, at Search Engine Land, we released our updated SEO periodic table, put a lot of work into it. Definitely download it. It's free to download. You just got to fill out some information. It actually is the 10th anniversary of when we initially launched the periodic table at Search Engine Land. So definitely take a look at that and download it. It's at searchengineland.com SEO table. So searchengineland.com/SEO table. You can get it over there or just read about it on the Search Engine Roundtable. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to the Search Buzz video recap. My name again is Barry Schwartz. The search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at seroundtable.com over the past week. Again, thank you so much to Loud Interactive for sponsoring. Appreciate it. And everyone, have a great weekend. Be safe. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.